Welcome to ontopicretro, episode 18. I'm John Cummins, and joining me tonight is Shannon Eno and Chris Logel, the X-Men aficionados, I would say. We're the only guys that were crazy enough to join me tonight to talk about X-Men.
Maybe a little both.
Yeah, I'm going to defer to Shannon on the comic knowledge, but if we're going to get into the 90s cartoon, I'm going to challenge him there.
Ooh, all right. I like it.
Yes. Well, I mean, this game doesn't have a whole lot of background as far as its development, so we should have some time to talk some 90s X-Men cartoon. I'm always up for that.
Excellent.
But today we're actually here to talk about the X-Men game that came out on the Sega Genesis, actually just titled X-Men. It's kind of weird it didn't get a... Usually these comic book games usually get like a subtitle of some kind at least. But nope, this one's just X-Men. And that's okay, because it's probably okay if it gets lost in the archives, because this isn't the greatest X-Men game that we'll play and talk about on the show at some point. So we'll go ahead and get into experiences, and we'll let you guys rattle them off. And just, I guess, Chris, you can go first.
Yeah, this game, I did play this growing up. I had a Sega Genesis. I was, like we mentioned, the cartoon. I was a big fan of the cartoon. So when you're at Blockbuster on the Friday night looking for something to rent on the Genesis for the weekend, this one immediately jumps out at you because it has the same look and the feel. The characters are exactly as in the 90s cartoon, which, I mean, I'm sure I'm not going to get any argument from Shannon, is the definitive X-Men. The story, the characters, that's what you want to go to if you want to know anything about them. I'm really excited they're bringing it back, the X-Men 97 revival series that's on Disney+. Yes. So this game, that's what drew me in. After that, like, it may not have lived up exactly to the expectations I had for it because it's very difficult. I mentioned to you guys the other day when we were talking about doing the episode, I didn't get it at level 1. But I still like being in the world. I like being in the Savage Land. I like being Wolverine and pulling out the claws and slashing at enemies. And even though I wasn't crazy about the mutant power bar, we can get into that later. But it was just fun being in that world, and the characters I really love the game. And I've been playing it off and on forever on emulation since. But yeah. That'll get us started.
Nice. Go ahead, Shannon. Where'd you start with this game?
So I didn't actually have a Genesis growing up at all. I was a Super Nintendo kid all the way. Nintendo and then Super Nintendo. But my buddy had both a Super Nintendo and a Genesis. And so we kind of bounced back and forth. He wanted to rent this game multiple times, and I was like, I don't really know. I'd had kind of bad experience playing the Spider-Man X-Men Arcades Revenge game, which was not good. Not really, really not good. Even though I loved X-Men and just was obsessed with the cartoon that came out in 92, and it was a little bit before we finally broke down and rented this. We played it a lot. It is brutally hard. Even 2-player. In fact, in some areas of the game, I think it was actually harder trying to play 2-player than single player. And I don't think we ever got past like level 3, even after going some all-nighters. He claims that he got further. I think he claimed to get to the last level, but I never saw any proof of that. So the only time I've ever seen the end of this game is watching videos on YouTube.
I hear you, man. This is a hard game, and I'm not even sure. Like, it had to be frustrating because there's a part towards the end of the game that requires you to kind of soft reset the game in order to move on. And if you accidentally did that wrong and you reset the game,
Oh
all the
man,
way.
that's nightmare fuel right there.
Yeah. It's yeah, there's definitely some things about this game that earns its notorious just difficulty rating that everyone talks about. And kind of like you, I didn't have a Sega Genesis growing up as a kid. I had a buddy that had one, but this wasn't ever a game that I played over there. I would emulate this game later, probably when I was in high school or maybe a little bit older. I tried to play this game. I didn't get very far then, and then I bought a Sega Genesis a couple years ago, and this was one of the games that came with it. So I
Nice.
definitely put a few more hours in trying to. I don't think I ever got past the first or second level either. So don't feel bad, Chris. Putting a lot of time into it. This is a game that really would benefit from making it onto like the NSO app and getting rewind and all that, because
Oh yeah, save
there's
states and
tons of
rewind.
there's tons of like pixel perfect things you have to do in order to survive. Even
I mean,
watching walkthroughs.
the problem I had was really more of stubbornness on my part. Like I'd start one character, I'd get Cyclops, I'd get going through the first level, I'd be on the verge of death, and all I would have to do technically is switch to a different X-Men,
Yep.
and I could continue playing. But I would be like, nope, I'm Scott Summers. I'm going to keep doing this, and I would die, and then have to start over again. And then after you killed all four of them, you're like, oh man, why don't I learn to just switch to somebody halfway through instead of going through and staying with the one character? Or like actually Shannon told me the other day, like, hey Chris, there's all these characters, the assist characters, and I'm like, oh my god, that makes it so much easier. It was like this, there's angels playing, like, oh my god, revelation. And Shannon, I really gotta talk to you more about games, because this is
The the
Yeah,
assist characters
that's
come in
the only
real
way.
handy for bosses.
Yeah, very. But even some other parts too, like you just have to like they do give. I mean, you can pick up some. A lot of them are hidden, but you can pick up refreshers on the assist X-Men that you
Yep.
get. And so once I learned like even pretty quick into the first level, you could pick up an angel, and you can't get extra. Like you could pick it up, it won't if you haven't used it, then it's
You
just
don't get to.
wasted.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
And so I was like, all right, I got to start using these a little quicker because, man, it is brutal. I do like though that you were Chris talk about being Wolverine. I mean, good Canadian choice there. Uh, I had to go with Gambit myself, but man, none of them make the game easy though. There's no
No,
there's no easy mode. Even easy mode in the game is not easy.
no.
no.
I mean, even Nightcrawler, who you think would make the game easier because he can teleport, doesn't make it any easier.
Yeah, right.
I mean, he might make certain parts of the game a little bit easier, but other than that, yeah, you're stuck. But no, the characters, like I feel like they did a good job with the characters, development wise. It's the hitboxes on the enemies sometimes are bad, and like sometimes they hit you and it doesn't even like you're looking at it like a projectile or whatever, and like didn't even get close to you and it hits you, and you're like, this is not fair. You get like a spear thrown above your head and it hits you anyway. You're like, there's
I mean,
just
the problem, the part I got really frustrated is I'd fall off the bottom of the screen, and then Gene would bring me back up to another place where I would just fall back down.
Yep.
And then it became a
Right.
cycle where, okay, I got to shift over because now I've lost
drop you in
half
another
the
hole.
Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can't even really tell sometimes where especially in the Savage Land levels there right at the beginning, like sometimes you can't tell the difference between solid ground and non-solid ground on some of
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
some of the parts, especially through the mountainous in the cave area. It's like, oh well, I guess I can't stand there.
Yep.
So we're gonna go ahead and move on to talk a little bit about, since we're already been kind of getting into a little bit of the game discussion itself. We'll go ahead and move on and talk a little bit about that. This game was released on March 8th of 93 in the US and sometime in 93 in Europe. I would imagine probably sometime around the same time, maybe a little bit later. Really, the only thing I could find on this game is that it was developed by Western Technologies Incorporated. Doesn't even really see where there's a whole lot of other things coming out of there, but they developed this game, and I can't find any backstory on, how involved any of the comic artists were whenever they were making this game, or anything, because this is a licensed game. You would think that there would be some major involvement with Marvel, at some point while they're making this game. You don't want, they don't want it to be thrown out there and just be garbage. Somebody's got to be watching over that stuff. But also, I was trying to think. I was to say, when did the animated series come out?
92.
92. So yeah, this
about
game
a year
would have
ahead
been
of
a
this.
product. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And the artwork itself in the game is not bad. Like the cutscenes and stuff in there is really, the characters look like the characters. They all feel very differently and everything. So, you would think that they had some kind of collaboration going, with Marvel and the artists there, but yeah, I couldn't find anything either.
Yeah, I was trying to remember. Go for it.
We talked about in the pre-show that the music doesn't really get there, and that the story is a little bit. I mean, it's not based on a comic story, so it's unique that way. But if they did do one thing well, it was the sprites, the models, everything else. Everything looks good. I think it looks great. I think it looks like an X-Men cartoon video game.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that part of it is good. How awesome would it have been if they could have figured out how to get that opening theme song from the TV show in the beginning of the game.
It was popping in my head when I turned it on. Just
you add it to the game yourself, but it would have been really cool because we've seen it in other arcade type ports and stuff where they'll have the music. Like I think the Ninja Turtles takes a stab at it in places. So
just think about they just brought back the Shredder's Revenge version with the full.
Oh yeah, it has the whole theme song in it.
It has the whole theme song, right? They nailed it. So that nostalgia definitely would be there if they brought this, if they remade this, and they could bring the theme song, because they still like the MCU when they teased. I think it was in spoilers for Doctor Strange. There's a bit of a they use that riff when Professor Xavier walks in.
Yeah,
and that's a seminal piece of music for the X-Men.
You mean when he rolls in?
When he rolls in, yeah.
It's actually more of a hover in.
Yeah, he's hovering at that point. Not like in the cartoon. Even like I know Shredder's Revenge has the actual full, theme song from the animated series, and that's not something that would have been possible at this time for the Sega Genesis. But they could at least have tried to attempt like a 16-bit version of that song. They could have made something work, I would think.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
there's games that are older than this that managed to pull that kind of stuff off.
Oh yeah.
But maybe they couldn't. Maybe there's some kind of rights issue. Who knows?
Yeah, that is another thing. But man, this game totally needed that theme song. Even if they just put it on loop in the background, I would have been fine with it.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, so there's not a whole lot of, like I said, there's not a whole lot of development background to this game that I could find anywhere. Not saying it's not out there. So we're going to go ahead and move on, talk a little bit about the story, which is also not as interesting as one might think that an X-Men game story would be. Being that it's a comic book and there's like a million things they could have based this game off of that were from the comics. story is that the game takes place in the Danger Room, which is a training area for the X-Men inside the X-Mansion. A virus transmitted via satellite has infected the Danger Room, disabling the control and safety limits. The X-Men must endure a unpredictable behavior of the Danger Room until the virus can be located and eliminated. Once the virus is eliminated, the X-Men discover that Magneto is behind the computer virus, and the final stage involves a battle with him. Some light spoilers there. If you probably won't ever make it to the end, so you'll just have to watch it anyway. But
Well, the beginning cutscene shows it was Magneto anyway behind it. So
it's kind of funny.
But it's. I'm guessing the virus must lock them in the Danger Room, because I kept wondering why they just didn't walk out the door right there at the beginning.
Yeah, it must. Yeah, there must be some kind of lock on the door or something. But
yeah,
and this is definitely something that kind of comes from the cartoon, because I remember in the cartoon they have like a training room.
Yeah, the Danger Room. Yeah, that's definitely X-Men lore.
Yep. So, yeah,
I was looking for an episode and I couldn't find it, because I know I watched a lot of the episodes, but I can't say I have a encyclopedic memory of all of them. But I'm pretty sure there was a theme of one or two of the episodes where the Danger Room, something was wrong, and I mean, not to the extent of this game where they were going all around the different places, but it's a tactic that the enemies of the X-Men will use to try and get them by infiltrating the Danger Room and, sort of, hey, it's not training anymore. Now they're really trying to kill us. So,
yeah, I just remember several scenes in the show where like they won't focus on the training room, but you can they'll make a situation where like they just came from the training room, or like they'll show like the very last bit of the training, and then they'll show them shut the room down or whatever, and then they'll start talking. Stuff like that can show.
Yeah, in the okay, I'm going to get a little geeky here for a second. The Danger Room in the early X-Men comics was a training room, but it had different things you'd find like in a gymnastic type gym, and hoops to jump through and all the sorts of stuff like that. And then later on, he kind of beefed it up with the technology from the Shire race of aliens, and got the technology to make it into more like what was in the animated series cartoon and in this, where it was more holographic in nature, and it could actually be fighting against copies of the enemies or whatever else that could actually hurt back, apparently.
Yeah.
So not sure how it works, but just call it alien technology. That solves everything.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, for people from unfamiliar, it's sort of like how it's encouraging the characters to use their mutant abilities, and they're trained how tactically how to use them in combat, sort of way.
Yep.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the story. I mean, like I said, it's not super heavy, but there's definitely a little bit there, and they kind of explain it. And there, like you mentioned, there are some pretty neat cutscenes that work out pretty well between levels, and the whole thing is just kind of walking you through, leading you along to find out, like we said, that Magneto is the one that's been behind it the whole time, trying to keep him in there. And then I think, what is it? You have to fly to the moon or whatever.
Asteroid M, I thought it was.
Asteroid M. That's what it was.
Yeah.
I went back and I thought about it, and I thought if the story was something more of a classic X-Men story, if it was like a Days of Future Past, or if it was a let's say I don't know, Avengers versus X-Men or something like that, I would have been more disappointed because the game's too hard and I wouldn't have got to those parts of the story anyway. So I would have been disappointed. Like, yeah, if it was the Dark Phoenix or something like that, I was sure, fine, because I was stuck at level 1 just discovering this first part of the story anyway. The game's too hard. So I didn't really care that it's a made up story. I didn't get there. I had to watch, like it's like Shannon said. The only way I got to level 4 or 5 or whatever at the end of the game was a YouTube video. So
Right. I will say they did a nice job of like having the different levels take you to a lot of X-Men specific locales. Like they're not generic. So I mean, you're going to the Savage Land, you're going to the Shire Empire, you're going to Excalibur, and that's kind of a deep cut. If you have no idea what anything about X-Men, you're just playing this, you would have no idea that that's like a British X-Men team, you know?
Yeah.
And then you're going to Ahab's world in the future. You're going to Mojo's universe, it's another dimension. And even though you're technically not leaving the X mansion because you're still in the danger room, they still have you go through these different locales, and they all have a very different look to them and everything.
They're all very distinctively different.
Yeah. And some, like I said, some deeper cuts, they're not just, oh, here's a jungle level, here's an ice level, here's they actually dug deep, and these are some pretty X-Men specific levels.
I guess in that way, the story is effective because it does tie in all those elements. It's a good way to, like you said, Shannon said, to visit lots of places of X-Men lore without having to, because one actual story from the comics wouldn't allow you to do that.
Yeah.
Especially back, in this time, this game is only like a little bit over an hour long.
Yeah, it's pretty short.
Yeah, if you sit and play through the whole thing in one go, if you're able to make it.
Unless you're dying over and over again.
Yeah, if you die over and over again, yeah. And I don't know, similar to what you guys were saying too, it seems like the animated series is where it's at, and they definitely, like this game definitely comes from that, so it's a good thing it came before the movie started going.
Yeah, I'll be honest, if they made an X-Men, the game, the movie from like the X-Men from the early aughts with the black leather and things, I think I'd be more angry.
There was games for those.
Yeah, I didn't like it.
They weren't good.
No.
Yeah, we wouldn't get any really good X-Men games until like the GameCube ones.
Oh yeah, X-Men Legends 1 and 2.
Legends. Those were good.
And those actually though have the generic uniforms. I think in those games, aren't they from the movies?
I think so. Yeah, some of them.
I think so. But then you could like unlock better ones. Yeah, more comic accurate ones. But those are amazing games. But we're not here to talk about them. But yeah.
So that could be a whole nother show, because you also have Marvel Ultimate Alliance that came out of that, and they kept rolling with it, but yeah, there was a good point in time where you just didn't play X-Men games, like they weren't very good in the middle there. I don't even know if there probably wasn't an X-Men game on the N64, not one that I could think of.
I don't think so.
No.
The N64 really missed out on a lot of licensed properties. There just wasn't that many games on it. But yeah, that's the story. Now we can talk a little bit about the actual gameplay of the game we've already been talking a little bit about, but we can do a little bit deeper dive, talk about the playable characters. We kind of talked a little bit Wolverine. It was kind of a weird choice for him to just not have his claws out all the time. Like, this is the only game I could think of where he doesn't just have his claws out when you attack.
Well, I feel like an actually is happening. Like I'm gonna do the nerd moment here too, because like people will argue to the blue in the face, Wolverine's mutant power isn't the claws; it's his healing factor.
Yep.
So
Why does
the way how do you put that into the game? That doesn't work because he doesn't. His ability to have the claws out doesn't go down as he's using them.
Well,
it really doesn't work like that.
The bone claws. If you take away the adamantium, the bone claws are part of his mutant power.
Yeah.
So in that way they are, but yeah, once they're out, it's not like he's like, oh man, I'm getting sick of heavy, because it heals up, right, when it pierces the skin. So in that way, yeah, I think it was just because they didn't know what else to do, for like,
he's pretty basic
power for him. I mean, because the healing, I mean, he heals, but it's like super slow. Like you can't count on it. You're like, put down the controller. If you could find a safe spot, and that's a pretty big F, put down your controller and go make yourself your lunch, and he might be healed back up.
Maybe.
Maybe.
But yeah, so that was the first thing I noticed playing as him is, normally you're just punching. You have to actually get his claws out to use them. Where I can't think of another X-Men game where like they're just not out whenever he's fighting. You don't have to bring him out; they're just already out.
Right.
I mean, I like the effect. I like the sound. I mean, they really nailed that.
That's probably the only good sound effect in the game.
That's really the only sound effect.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So yeah, he does have the healing factor. It's pretty crappy. That's the only other thing he has going for him. Then we have Gambit, who uses the bow staff, and I thought it was really cool that he can throw the cards. Like that's like his main deal. But sometimes some of the other games kind of leave that out, and he just fights with a staff. Like it's not who he is. So I definitely thought that was cool.
And you compare the sound effect to Wolverine, is whatever sound that card makes when he's throwing it sounds like it's a flying saucer. Yeah. And the fact that it's a homing card, I never understood that one either.
Yeah, it does kind of follow the enemy around, which makes it useful. And if you hold down the special attack button for a little bit, it like lasts Charge longer, up. And I think it might hit harder. But so you basically can go for a little more damage. So it is quite useful, and it's definitely the character that I use the most when I play the game. But I also I like the idea of the bow staff as well. So that's why I always play as Donatello too.
Yep.
I mean, I think Gambit has the most range, both with the card and with the melee attack because of it.
Well, except for the optic blast.
Well, yeah,
that was a little more reach, but yeah. But in general, for sure. So, yeah, not that it really helps with the hitbox detection, though.
Yeah, no, that's you're not going to get any help there. We talked about how Wolverine was kind of basic. Cyclops is even more basic. Like,
yeah,
his only power is the blasts. So, like, they lean into that. Other than that, he punches for little damage.
I mean, he's my least favorite X-Men anyway. So, this just kind of reinforces that.
It's a nitpick, but like it doesn't look anatomically correct because his arm looks like it's twice as long as his leg. I'll be honest, it's a weird looking punch. And my wife saw me playing this the other day, and she's like, "Did you just he punched that caveman in the crotch?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's what Scott Summers does. I guess he punches people in the crotch." Right. But it just looks funny. The arm looks like it's so long.
It's almost like Dave Bates, where he's like kind of leaning forward when he punches.
Yeah, a little bit.
But yeah, it definitely doesn't look right. Like the animation could have been better on it. In the blast, though, like that's the only thing he's good for is to like bring him out occasionally, use up his mutant power, and then put him back and get somebody else out.
And correct me if I'm wrong, because that was one of the frustrating things was if you switched, I think you were allowed to switch once.
Yeah.
Because then I found if I try to switch again, no, now you're dead. or if I'm wrong here, because I think I would play as one character, almost die, switch to another one, and then if I was getting close to the end of my health meter, I would try to switch a third time. Now everyone's X'd out, at least of the playable characters.
I don't know that I've ever tried to switch again in a level.
I don't know about per level. Like, that's a interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure. I know, like I'm thinking in the next level, like you can make sure you use them up before you end the level, and then you get them back in the next level.
Right. And like Shannon said, you could replenish the assist characters.
Yeah.
But I think you only got to two of the main 4 per level, and then you're out of luck, which was a lot of the reasons why I didn't make it out of the Savage Land.
I could see it.
I mean, I did once, like on the weekend, and I had a party because I thought this is great. I've been playing this game for like 30 years. I finally made it to level 2.
Yes, I love the Savage Land. Oh man! Last but not least, we have Nightcrawler. He does retain his teleportation ability. He can skip many areas in the game. I didn't know this, but because I haven't ever played this 2-player, but he can also transport a secondary character.
Yeah, when my buddy and I played years ago, we kind of stumbled on that by accident. Like we never saw I don't think we ever saw a manual or anything, so I don't know if it was in there, but yeah, apparently and it's really just about, if I remember correctly, because man, it's been a long time since I played it 2-player, but if you're right by where he's teleporting from with the other character, he'll teleport both. But I also found him kind of like that is his major use, is the teleportation. I didn't find him all that helpful in actual melee combat.
Yeah, he was the worst character for combat,
yeah.
I think.
Because, I mean, it's great. You can teleport through levels, but like it doesn't really help you take down any of the bosses or anything like that.
Nope. Yeah. So yeah, Nightcrawler's kind of the he's like the character that seems cool, but at the end of the day, he's not going to help you out much.
Yeah. Yep.
And then we also mentioned the support characters. There were other X-Men such as Storm, Rogue, Iceman, and Archangel, who can all be called upon for support. And every once in a while, similar to what Chris was saying, if you fall, Jean Grey will come and pick you up.
Yeah.
And then,
I think the biggest disappointment I had with the support is just that, like, in all the cutscenes, you see Psylocke, but that's it. You're not actually going to get her
there. Yeah,
not even. Yeah, she's not back up. No. She's not anything. They left her off. Most of the TV show. I think she made a couple of appearances in the cartoon, but if I'm remembering correctly, but never.
I think even in the 90s, she was a little bit risque for the.
Yeah, probably
for the TV show.
Yeah. That's X-Men After Dark.
Yeah, right. But she was always one of my favorite characters in the comic too, and so I was kind of disappointed that, like, oh, she's there. Oh, she's in the game. No, she's not actually playable. She's just there in the cutscenes.
And there's another note in here that Sauron can be seen. He kind of has a cameo at the end of the first level, helping the player in flight.
Yeah, so I always saw him playing this game, and because he's a bad guy in X-Men lore, I avoided him.
Yeah.
I seriously, until just the other day when I watched somebody play through the game so I could see the ending of it on YouTube, and they jumped on his back and just flew over a good chunk of the end of that first level, and I was like... Mine was blown. I had no idea you could do that. I'm like, all those. I mean, I've lost track of how many times I've played this game over the years, and I had no idea you could do that. No idea.
I mean, I'll be honest. Shannon told me on the weekend, like, "Hey, Chris, you got to be more creative with the assist characters." And I looked at it like, "Oh my god, that's how you do that!" And that's how I got through the level. So like,
Yep.
I'm pouring it out for Shannon. This is pretty awesome. I'm glad he's on the show today, so I can tell him
Well, I appreciate that.
he's basically got me over the hump. It's one of my gaming accomplishments of life. I got through level 2.
Oh man. And I was trying to remember how many levels there are in the game.
I think it's just
5.
I think there's 5.
Yeah,
5.
Because there's
I was thinking.
Yep.
Savage Land. I mean, if you don't count the danger room. I mean, I know there's a couple little enemies, but they're really more to refill your health.
Exactly.
They're not real, you know.
Yep.
But so I think it's just Savage Land, the Shire Empire, that Excalibur Lighthouse headquarters, Mojo, Ahab. Oh, maybe 6, because you had the future, which was Ahab at the end of it. That was kind of your Days of Future Past kind of level, and then Asteroid M. So I guess 6 levels.
Yeah, 6.
I never made it past Excalibur's Lighthouse personally, ever. I've never made it past that level.
Once I finally got out of the Savage Land, I tried playing the Shire Empire 3 or 4 times. I think I finally got out of onto the spaceship flying away, and that's where I was. Did make it past.
It's hard, but I thought the Shire Empire level was actually a little easier than the Savage Land one, personally, because you're not falling off the edge on those conveyor belty. They're not conveyor belts, but like the little, I don't even know what they are really, but they kind of look like a conveyor belt that goes up and down, and they have the little ledges on, and when it hits towards the bottom, it just drops you right off. Man, I had a hard time on that part.
I mean, and I finally got Iceman to get me across there, and I thought, holy crap, Shannon did it.
That's the only way I can get through there, because I can't do it any other way.
That's a lot of precision jumping. The platforming on that is pretty awful.
Yeah.
And like, talk about hitbox. Everything hits you within like a certain, like a good sized chunk of around the character. Those things, if you don't pixel perfect jump on that, no, you're falling off. And then as soon as you nail the jump, it falls off because it's at the bottom, and you're.
You'll be really bad in this game.
Yeah, well, you'll be jumping, and it's like Castlevania level design where you're jumping in the air, and something from off screen just flies at you. It hits you mid jump and knocks you. It's like, that's that.
Yep.
Or the ironic part is like the bugs, which are supposed to signify the little hive that has a power up. It's killing you too.
That's right.
Even power ups are killing you in this game.
That's right.
The power up's killing you. You're like, what the hell?
100%, man. It's rough, but
so
it really becomes more of a platformer than any kind of beat 'em up or anything like that.
Saying before we got started, this game came out in '93, and there was a game called Captain America and the Avengers that came out 2 years prior to this on the Sega Genesis, and it was like more of a beat 'em up style game. And I really think that's more of what I want versus what we got with this game, this platforming, hard mode.
Yep.
And it also had,
and to be honest with you, like,
so
John, this game was basically like Comic Zone. The previous episode we did was a game I hadn't played. This was basically Comic Zone, but I knew the characters and I watched the cartoon. Both games were super hard.
Yes, this game's a little bit harder than Comic Zone, though. Like, I beat Comic Zone.
Yeah, because there's not the platforming part.
And there's a lot less of it, the game.
There's a lot. This has more.
There's more levels in this game. And a lot more cheap deaths in this game. The thing that's cheap about Comic Zone is that whenever you're punching obstacles, you're dying. That's the cheapness there. There's not too many enemies that just come out of nowhere and get you. I mean, they have to be drawn into the game, in that game at least.
Well, yeah, and
A lot of,
the
go ahead,
well, I
Shane.
was just gonna say the bosses of this game. I mean, they hit hard. They're hard to hit
They're
themselves.
sponges.
Really, you can only win if you are calling in your backup X-Men.
Yeah,
Like Rogue coming in and flying by and getting some
They,
punches in. Storm
excuse me.
coming in and dropping some lightning
They,
and stuff like
or
that.
they
Archangel.
have
Right, or
patterns,
Archangel
but
coming in and just doing that. Yeah,
the only way you would
but
know
the
them is if
problem
you
is,
watch somebody play them.
yeah, well, that's just it. And you could actually waste even your backup. Like if you call
You
in
miss.
Archangel and the boss is not in exactly the right spot, he'll fly over several times and completely miss the boss,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, that was a waste.
Yeah.
So
And I think that's why I was never really quick to use it, because I think I mean, recently I saw a playthrough where they definitely hoarded all the assist characters to the bosses.
For the boss.
yeah,
There wasn't a lot of using it in between, except for the Iceman, because obviously Iceman was end up being,
right.
and I learned this way too late, because that if I need to get over an area, he's gonna make that clear ice path, and then yeah, no, I'd rather frustratedly jump until and what really always got me was I'd fall a few times, Gene would bring me back up, then basically Gene's bringing me back up as I'm dead, and dropping me on, here you go, corpse, and
Yeah.
you're like, Gene, come
Or
on.
I
drop
know,
you
and
in another
then
hole.
I'm like, why isn't Gene or Rogue just flying me to the end of the level? Like,
Yeah.
it's like, why don't they just go take them out?
This rock.
Right? It's like, come on.
I'm like, it got really dark in there for a while, because you're like, geez, like, well, you're dead, so I'll just leave you here to
Right.
leave you to rot, I guess.
Right.
Like, come on, Gene.
Put your corpse on the ground.
Right? And the sound effect is what really got me. I'm like, oh,
So,
man, I wanted to throw so many
so what
controllers.
was your guys' favorite boss that you actually got to play?
Well, for the longest time was Juggernaut. So that was all.
Because that was the only one.
That was the only one.
Because
Yeah.
there's Juggernaut and Mojo, and
I never got to Mojo.
I mean, obviously Magneto.
I'm trying to remember who was. I'm trying to remember.
Like, Juggernaut's in the middle of the Savage Land, but who's at the end of level 1 there?
That's what I'm
I'm
trying
trying to
to
remember her name.
Her name, yeah.
Okay. As soon as it's like it starts with a Z. It starts with a Z.
That's what I'm trying to look it up really quick because I can't remember.
I know this is riveting podcasting, but
Yes.
I know it. I know it starts with a Z. All right, I need you
Juggernaut
guys'
is
help.
the middle boss. Zaldane.
Zaldane. Okay, at least I got the Z. I knew it was something like that.
And then
In the Shire, you fight
Deathbird
Deathbird. I think that might be.
is the only boss.
Yeah, because I think that Deathbird. I liked her. I think that was probably my favorite one because she could the kinetic cards work really well on her. Gambit's kinetic
right.
cards. So
And then let's see. Then we have at Excalibur Lighthouse. You have Sabretooth.
yeah, I don't know if I made it far enough in the Excalibur Lighthouse to ever face him.
And then you have to fight the Juggernaut again.
Right.
And then Apocalypse.
Yeah, Apocalypse is
And then obviously you fight Ahab in Ahab's world.
Yep, Mojo. Gonna fight Mojo, and then of course Magneto. And I'm trying to remember if you had to fight if there was anybody else in that on Asteroid M.
I'm not seeing anybody.
Okay. I don't remember. seen it when I watched somebody playing through it.
Nope,
So
just Magneto.
The truth of it is, if you like, when I watched a playthrough and people had hoarded the assist characters at the end, the boss fights weren't much. Like you got, if you did it right, you dodge a couple of attacks, you throw a couple of the assist characters at them, probably a rogue or a archangel, and that was it. It wasn't much.
If you can actually make contact with any of them with Archangel, he'll take them down like 2 or 3 health pieces at a time.
But you got to dodge long enough to
stay alive.
To stay alive to get them in the right spot.
Yep.
Yeah, which is the problem because dodging seems to be anywhere near you. You're taking damage.
As much of a sponge as the other ones are, like Magneto is just even worse. Like he's horrible. Even watching somebody that just kind of whipped through the rest of the bosses, like I think the playthrough that I watched, it still took him like another 6 or 7 minutes just to kill Magneto, like alone. He kind of zipped through the level faster than that, I think.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, it's pretty rough. The whole game is very punishing. You can definitely tell that it was designed in an era where you had a lot more time than you do now.
So in the part of the game where you basically are told in game that you need to restart the computer in the danger room to get rid of the virus. Is that the only clue that you get to reset your Genesis?
I think so.
Because I remember talking about I remember knowing about it when we were playing the kid, hearing other people talk about it, but I don't know how anybody really
would have known to do that. You don't do
would
that.
Have known, and what does it do if you don't? If you don't, like, does it just sit there?
I think so. I'm not sure because I haven't made it that far.
Yeah, and it's like because I'd be like, okay, what am I? It'd be a little nerve wracking, kind of deciding to reset.
Yeah, I only made that far in YouTube.
Yeah.
All right. I think we talked a little bit about the soundtrack and the music and the sound effects, which are neither one of them were great in this game, but like I said, I think the best one is the Wolverine claws coming out is probably the only one that sounds even close to what it should be.
I mean, if you don't believe it's just how bad these sound effects are, go watch a playthrough of this. You would just, it makes your ears bleed.
I'll see if I can find some of them and maybe put them in the show so we can.
It just seems like a wasted opportunity that there wasn't more connection to the show.
The soundtrack is pretty forgettable. I mean, it was very samey. There wasn't it just never really seemed, as much as the levels themselves looked visually very different for the most part, the music between the levels never really felt that way.
I guess since you're only in the danger room, you're not actually in these places. You're just hearing the music from the danger room the whole time.
It's the music that Xavier's got pumped into the danger room.
Right. It's like the Matrix where they don't know what these places really sound like, so this is what they program.
There you go.
But yeah, that's basically all of the gameplay aspect of the game and music and things. I did find a few fun facts. I don't know how great they are, but so basically, if you hold down or hold down on the D-pad A and C, then power on or reset the Genesis and keep the buttons held until the title screen appears. Then press the and hold the start button while keeping the other buttons held. Release all the buttons at once. Or release all the buttons once the difficulty select appears. Choose any difficulty and character that you want, and when the game starts, go to the right, and there'll be 8 panels on the wall, and this will allow you to select a level that you want to play, so you can kind of skip through the, to the last level if you want, or any of the other levels. And you must hold down and press C in order to go into the level. I guess you can also achieve this by using a Game Genie.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of it seems like sound when I hear things like that. I mean, it sounds like Twister. Like I would probably need several people to help me hold these buttons down and like the timing right.
And then the other note was that for whatever reason, you can't do this if you have a controller plugged into port 2. So if you're playing co-op, you can't level select.
It's just weird.
It is weird.
Yeah.
Oh man. I mean, do either one of you guys have a Sega Genesis Game Genie?
No.
I have one now, so I could probably just use the code and skip to the level versus trying to do all the weird button pressing and resetting my Sega.
They're all not resetting. Instead of just dying on the first level, you can die on any level you want over and over again.
Exactly. Yeah, watered on any of them. Oh man.
You can try to die all over the X-Men universe.
That's right.
But yeah, that's the only things I had fun facts-wise.
It sounds like we're crappy on this game a lot, but I'm going to be honest with you. Even though I never made it out of the Savage Land, I probably rented this game a few times just because, again, huge fan of the comic, of the cartoon, and the game really kind of did it for me. So as frustrating as I got, I still went back to it. I played hours. I played.
You got to remember, as a kid, all these points that we just brought up are invalid. Like at that point, you don't care.
Yeah.
What else were you gonna do? Play one of the other 5 games that released that year on your Sega Genesis?
Right. This was once I did finally break down and we started renting it. This became like a fairly semi-regular rental. Because we were determined to.
Yeah, there's a bit of a white whale aspect to it. They're like, I'm going to get out of the Savage Land this time, and I didn't, but I tried.
And this is and this really was. I mean, again, yeah, like you said, it sounds like we're just kind of crapping on it, but I really actually do enjoy it, and I still actually find it enjoyable, even though it's frustrating. To still play, like, because it had been a long time since I played it, and then when I saw that, this game was coming up, I ended up buying it, picking it up at a local, and realized I still actually kind of enjoy playing this. It doesn't control super awesome. It's frustrating. It's hard. But darned if I still don't want to keep trying.
Yeah.
And it's got some of my favorite characters in it. It basically, it took most of at that time in the comics, and around the time of the cartoon show, they kind of split the team up into a couple different teams, and they used most of the characters are from the X-Men. Well, actually, I was going to say they're mostly from the blue team, but I guess when you look at the assist characters too, it's pretty much half and half.
Yeah.
From the gold team and the blue team. But like because Cyclops, Wolverine, Gambit, they were all from the blue team. And I guess at this time Nightcrawler actually was on Excalibur, so he wasn't actually even on the actual X-Men team at this point. But then most of the support characters were from the gold team: Archangel, Iceman, Storm. I guess Rogue would have been on the blue team, but so I guess my whole point was completely invalid there.
It still works though. And everyone's getting a lesson in '90s X-Men comic history.
Oh yeah, that's that lesson
Well,
nobody wanted or
and
asked
if you
for.
want to if you want to add to the Chris and Shannon Marvel minute, uh, they're bringing the cartoon back. So the revival, which is a sequel to the '90s cartoon, will be called X-Men '97. I think it's going to release on Disney Plus in
Correct.
2023.
Yeah.
So it'll be some. I don't think we have a release date
Well, they
next
have
year.
the original.
So if you want to go with
Already,
that,
What's that?
they had the
yeah,
original run on there
Yes.
already.
it's on there.
It's
Yeah, it's on there.
definitely
Yeah.
worth a
So
watch.
it'll continue from there.
If you are if anybody's interested in X-Men lore, while they obviously didn't follow the comics exactly by any stretch of the imagination, a lot of their storylines ended up pulling from a lot of classic X-Men storylines really, really closely. And
I mean, it's a good
like
blueprint.
it's still the best version of the Dark Phoenix saga that has ever been done outside of the actual comic. Um,
I think it's best. I think it's also the best Days of
Days of
Future
Future Past.
Past, and also the best what's Apocalypse.
Yeah, that's this.
I
Yeah,
mean, they've only got one other one to go off of, and it was horrible.
Yeah, well, I know that's a low bar, but it did do much better. And if they're going to bring the comic back, let's bring this back. You could remake it, or you could bring it on SO in the Genesis form. Shannon and I will fire it up. We'll play some two
heck
player.
yeah,
I don't know.
There you go.
you know it. You know it.
Well, I think that moves us into the outro, and I'll let you guys have a chance for some final words, and then you guys, if you have anything going on, you can promote what you're doing. Shannon, you can go first if you'd like.
Yeah. So you could find me over on all the discords, on the retrologic, Nintendo Dads, etc. And I have just kind of started doing some streaming this past summer, just mostly playing retro Nintendo, Super Nintendo games. Um, haven't been doing it quite as often of late, been busy at work, but hopefully I can get back into that. I'm kind of in the middle of playing through Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, a game that everybody likes to kind of crap on, but actually, when you
It's not
play it,
that
it's
bad.
it's it's not bad at all.
No,
It's not bad at all. It's no Final Fantasy, 4 or 6, but it holds its own. It's still a lot of fun. So yeah, you can find me over on Twitch. Spider Shan 8, I think, is what it is on Twitch. Um, and then I try to upload everything on YouTube as well after the fact.
awesome. Chris, you can. We just had you do yours last week, but you can do it again or the week before.
Well, so I was here for the last episode, but this last weekend, for those who are familiar with the Nintendo Dads and Extra Life, this was the weekend for Extra Life where we were raising money for local children's hospitals. I was part of Team Nintendo Dads. Before they went to New York, I was going to do some actual streaming of Zelda 2, but what ended up happening is Saturday night, I picked the game up. I just started playing through from the start, and I put a lot of the clips on my Twitter feed. I'm at ChrisHL94, and so if you go there, you can see all the little tips and tricks that I use from Zelda 2, and then you can find the link to my Extra Life charity. I'm raising money for the McMaster Children's Hospital here in Hamilton, Ontario. I'm hoping to still stream some of the game through Tim's we're gonna find some time stream some Zelda 2 on the Nintendo Dad's channel. But in the meantime, if you want some just some tips and some clips of Zelda 2, and you can donate to Extra Life, please do. So
yes, definitely go support any of the Nintendo Dads, and the rest of our communities are also participating in Extra Life. Support any of those guys any way you can. It's all for a good cause. Children hospitals do so many good things that people don't even think about. It's definitely.
Yeah, I shared a story that my daughter, my youngest daughter, was suffering from epileptic seizures. So we did spend some time at McMaster doing tests, neurological scans. So I really appreciate anybody who could help support the hospital because they do some great work.
Do. It's awesome. But yeah, so everyone go check out anything that these guys got going on. One day we're going to do a Zelda 2 episode.
Oh,
we'll have to get. I've been kind of steering clear of Zelda, just because I know all those things and those games have been done a million times in other retro shows. I've been trying to highlight games that I didn't think that other people would talk as much about. But we'll have to do Zelda 2 just for you, Chris, one day.
I mean, it was Saturday night. I think it started around 10:30. And to be honest, I was just so on autopilot, I didn't realize what time it was when I finished. But like, I would go into a dungeon and then just sort of, it was almost like a scary amount of, like, I know this whole layout so well that I just instinctually go into places. I'm like, am I going the right way? Like, I guess I know exactly where I'm going. It's almost, it's a little scary because it's completely useless knowledge for everything else.
It happens. But yeah, we'll get there eventually. But as for next show's game, we're going to be doing Harvest Moon 64. I don't have anybody as of yet that wants to come talk about Harvest Moon 64, but I think that I could probably talk about that game by myself if I had to. I've played probably at least 5 or 6 times through it, so definitely have enough background on that one. But hopefully I can dig somebody out of the woodwork and come on. So I don't think anybody wants to hear me talk.
I think I have to go to check out my local used game store, see if I can dig up a copy of this somewhere.
It's high now. I think it's probably a $60, $70 game loose now.
I'll have to use my negotiating skills to bring that down a bit.
Yeah.
We'll see what we can do. Do you need to learn how to play Zelda 2?
I Zelda 2 is one that it's one of those that I've always wanted to get good at and never have. I don't have the time to get that was a get good that should have happened 30 years ago and never did. So
So for anybody out there who wants to learn Zelda 2 and has a spare copy of Harvest Moon, at Chris HL94, that's where you can get it.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. Maybe we can get it on the NSO app here soon, and I'll double check. I'll send you a message. I'll see if it's on the Wii U one because you still have your Wii U. You can still be able to pick it up for like $10 on that if it's still there. All right.
Sounds good.
Well, I think that about does it. Thanks for listening to On Topic Retro, part of the retrologic family of podcasts. Also, in a weird way, under the umbrella of the Nintendo Dads family of podcasts. If you'd like to send in your personal experiences for the next show but don't have Discord, you can send them to ontopicretro@gmail.com. If you haven't joined our wonderful non-toxic Retrologic Discord and you'd like to, you can visit retrologic.games for details on how to join for free. It's free. We don't charge a dime. You come talk to all of the best people to talk retro games with. Honestly, I think we have like a little bit of everything. Like there's a fan of we've got a fan of every system almost. Like there's just a plethora of good knowledge floating around that Discord. So if you like retro games, join up and you'll have a blast talking to people of all backgrounds of retro gaming. And also, while you're at retrologic.games, you can find all the other podcasts that we do. That's all there, and you can also read a blog that our good friend Sam puts together over there, and he talks all kinds of things, from just games that he's got on his mind. He's done a lot of through the NSO apps that are on the Switch, and then he's also highlighted several game developers on there that are they're all a good read through. So just go check them out. That's it for this episode. Stay tuned for the next one, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye now.